Hello, here's the thought for you. What happens when your cloud service provider is churning out more new capabilities than you as a business could possibly ever dream of absorbing? And is there anything you can do about it? That's what I'm going to be exploring in this video, so stick around. But first, a short disclaimer. Anything I say in this video is purely based on my own personal view and not those of my employer. I just want to make sure we can all agree on this. So folks, here's the thing. Ever since enterprise cloud services started to become more commonplace, I think you would agree with me that the pace of innovation has kept on increasing. New services, new features, new functionalities, and in generic terms, just new stuff is being introduced on an increasingly rapid pace. Now that's certainly true for Microsoft's cloud services, and from what I know, it is also true for AWS, Google, and many other players out there. And this, for many organizations, has been a godsend. I mean, you sign up for 3 years to an evergreen service and you can be pretty darn sure to have new capabilities being added to your subscription as time progresses, and even with the same monthly price, which to me sounds like a pretty good proposition. But from my personal work, I've also noticed that something fundamental has changed. Unlike before, where you kind of waited for new features to be added, today they just show up. Now, of course, it is more complicated than that. We are talking about a flipping tsunami of new capabilities being added all the time. And here's where it's different to before, I think. Before, it was more likely than not that the new features that were being added were just incremental improvements to whatever service you already had. You know, perhaps a tweak over here, a fix over there, but in essence, something you could easily appreciate and of course absorb. But today, a lot of the new capabilities that are being added are completely new. And there's lots of them, and they just keep on coming. And here's the thing that I think you would have noticed if you've been in the game for a while. It's not just that you get more new features thrown at you at an increasing pace. You also get completely new categories of capabilities thrown into the mix. Now, if you are on a Microsoft platform, thank you by the way, you would have seen Microsoft bringing out new types of capabilities, such as the Enterprise Mobility Security Suite or the Workplace Analytics Suite of services. Now, so you would be familiar with this concept. But how do I think you need to think differently about this whole thing? Well, number one, you can't really stop the flywheel, can you? New capabilities, both in kind and type, are inevitably going to be there for you. So to answer my own little quirky question, which is what should you do to avoid getting completely swamped by technology? Well, here's one way of taking ownership of your own destiny. Number one, start by defining a set of categories that you suspect may be impacted as a result of what I just described in terms of technology being rolled out quickly. Personally, I would look at the following 6 categories. Security, which I believe is the obvious one. Compliance, the second one. Productivity, which is of course super important. Employee experience, ever increasingly important. Privacy, we can't forget privacy. And finally, portfolio management. Now, this list is just my own personal list, so feel free to remove, add as many as you like. But the point, of course, is this. For each of these categories, you have to come up with a set of simple questions that you then need to address before committing to rolling out any kind of new capability. So the first question, in my mind at least, should be, what is the expected impact that this new capability will have on your organization? For example, what is the impact on security, compliance, productivity, employee experience, privacy, and how can you use this new feature or capability to streamline your existing portfolio? Or if you flipped it around, is there indeed a risk of vendor lock-in if you go down a specific path? Now, at this point, we are, of course, purely talking about assumptions, meaning your best guesstimate at the potential future scenario, because you don't have the facts yet. But the great thing is that it does force you to document your assumptions, and it will allow you to raise potential concerns if you have any, or even flag things people further down the chain of command should be aware of. You should, of course, also define how these capabilities would support specific desired business outcomes, but I think that's a given one. The second question is more practical. Once you've rolled out technology, how do you make sure that these new capabilities are not just, in inverted commas, rolled out, but in fact also adopted by a workforce? And finally, you have to make sure that you have a regime in place to follow up on each of these categories. For example, if you did something on security, did we indeed improve our security posture? And if we think we did, do we have any proof to back it up? And from a employee experience perspective, for example, did we improve it? If we think we did, show me the numbers. And speaking of numbers, did we really save money by consolidating our portfolio? Or is there even a risk that we're now too far invested in a particular vendor ecosystem that could potentially later on result in us not having enough leverage in our own vendor negotiations? Now, who should lead this engagement and who should be part of the work stream? Well, not surprisingly, I think it's the work of the CIO to manage this framework, but it can be the service manager as well. The title here is not the important bit, the ownership bit is. In any case, whoever owns the framework cannot do their job properly, at least in my mind, unless he or she is supported by a category owner. So for security, the natural counterpart should be the CISO. For compliance, I think that's pretty much legal. Productivity, the COO. I think employee experience needs to sit with HR. Privacy, I think that's squarely with legal. And portfolio management should be managed by procurement. And to avoid siloed communication, each category owner must have access to the full picture, and it is the responsibility of the owner of the framework to share information and to work collaboratively with each of these. Ideally on a bi-weekly basis, but I think you can stretch it out to a monthly recurring event. And this is where I want to end this video, with a strong recommendation to move away from a rhythm of business based on quarterly reviews and assessments and to move to a bi-weekly rhythm. But that's just me. Let me know what you think. And yeah, please post your comments below. Let's strike up a conversation. See you later. Oh, and Happy New Year.